DreAllDay.com.
Continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we're on part 3. Did I say it was going to be a 2-part series? It's actually a 3-part series on why we are in an information war that is never going to end. This is an ongoing war that you'll be in for the rest of your natural life. All right, so I already gave you the intro to this 2 episodes ago. You already know what we're talking about, where we're coming from, and why. Let's get right to it here, picking up on part number 3 of our what will now be a 3-part series, concluding with the end of today's episode. Number 7. We have no universal referee, at least not in the secular world. Now, when I talk about this on social media, sometimes people who are religious will jump in and say, well, my higher spiritual beings, such as God or Jesus Christ, they are the universal referee. But since not everybody follows the same religion or any religion whatsoever, we can't even agree on that. So being that there's no universal referee, nobody has to agree with any quote unquote facts being presented to them, and nor should they. Those of you who are religious, again, I already told you what you may say about that. But short of this, there is no universal referee that can settle all disputes of information, especially in the secular world. We can't settle those disputes. Those disputes, even the ones if you believe religiously, those don't get settled until the afterlife, until you're gone. All right. So we can go back and forth with information, perspectives, and opinions and never come to a conclusion simply because there is so much material we can each throw back and forth at each other on every subject. The conversation is never over unless somebody decides to stop providing perspectives and information. It can literally go on and on forever. It is not because we run out of material. Is since everything is filtered through personal beliefs, as I told you in the previous point, if I personally don't like you, or I personally have decided I'm going to disagree with whatever you say because I know your position and I don't want to agree with anything that even sounds like I'm agreeing with that position. You have all seen this in action. Some of you are guilty of it yourselves. And I don't want to agree anything from that position, then I don't need to. I won't accept you as the arbiter of what's objectively true. I'll just discredit you. Even if your material is indeed objectively true, I will find a way to discredit your material just because I want to. If I choose not to accept it, there's not really anything you can do about it. All right, you can't make me accept it. Again, folks, that's why this is a never-ending war. And this is the situation that we're in. I was just, before I started recording this episode, I was browsing through some notifications on social media on X, the only app where I engage with people, and someone was making some claim. And they were asked to provide information on their claim, and they provided a bunch of screenshots that they got from Google. The problem with that is somebody could provide you a bunch of screenshots from Google that counter that material. And this person was saying that something is personally affecting other people. If that person doesn't feel it, you have to explain it to them that it's not really affecting them, is it? I mean, again, it doesn't make any sense. So this is the reason why we're in this info war, because certain people, once they decide that this is the belief that they have, actually most people fit this description. Once they decide they have a certain belief, there's nothing you can tell them that is going to cause them to not have that belief. They're going to continue having that belief, and they will just seek out the information that validates that belief and invalidate any information that invalidates that belief. That's just what it is. And there is no way around it. If there's a way around this, please tell me what it is. I'll do an episode on that. But there ain't one. All right, I'm telling you right now, there is not a way around this. What matters these days, folks, is you have to be able to persuade and influence people. And whether you have the actual facts on your side or not is secondary. This is the inconvenient truth of the world that we're in right now. Point number 8, today's topic, once again, is why we're in a never-ending information war. Number 8, outrage is now a business model. Outrage is a business model. I just told you at the end of the previous point that if you want to move people these days, you don't give them the facts and the information. You don't give them the truth. You don't give them objectivity. You persuade and you influence them with whatever it is you need to use in order to persuade and influence them. If you need to bend the truth a little bit or play a little bit fast and loose with the truth, but you're able to persuade and influence people, then you do it. Why? Because if you want people to see things your way, you got to meet them where they're at and you got to bring them to where you're at. And that requires persuasion and influence, not facts and information. Because if all it took to persuade people to action was facts and information, there would be lines of people standing outside libraries and bookstores waiting to get in just so they can get all the facts and information out of those books. The fact that most people stand in line out in front of concerts and movie theaters is because people are persuaded and influenced by the concerts and the movie theaters because those things speak to their emotions rather than to the logical sides of their brains. You got to be able to speak to people's emotions if you want to move masses of people, if that's your goal. So outrage as a business model has always been a thing going back over 100 years. If it bleeds, it leads. You have heard this saying before. If you haven't, now you've heard it. If it bleeds, it leads. This is the way the news networks work. They still operate by this to this very day. What does that mean? If it bleeds, it leads. It means that you don't open the news or put on the front page of the newspaper some fun, happy, positive story most of the time. Most of the time you put on the front page or the opening of the news show something that is dramatic, something that gets people anxious, nervous, afraid, angry, upset. Why? Because that draws people's attention. You're more likely to draw people's attention by getting them into a negative, low frequency, energetic state than you are by getting them into a high frequency, energetic state. Why? Human nature. Human nature is designed to protect us from dangers like losing our lives. And it is stronger. The urge to protect yourself from losing something, such as your life, is stronger than the urge to gain something, such as any type of success, happiness, goal, achievement, etc. So outrage is a business model because of human nature. And once people realize this, they just pounced on it, and they've been doing it for the last 100+ years. And they'll keep doing it for the next 100 years. If you want to get people's attention, you got to get them nervous, fearful, anxious, angry, trigger some sort of negative energy state. That's how you get people's attention. The reason for this is because although positive energy also exists, negative energy is much more activating to the human animal than positive energy. I am much more likely to take action when I'm mad than if I'm happy, generally speaking. Human beings are more apt to do something to avoid a loss than they are to do something to gain a victory. So when you understand this, anything you put out there, if you can get people angry, upset, nervous, or fearful, you'll probably get their attention better than if you get them happy. And if you can keep it up, you will keep their attention. You just got to keep giving them new things to be mad, angry, upset, or fearful about or of. You want to see this in action by people who are experts at it. Watch American politics. That's all they do. Governmental politics in the United States is all it is. It's just giving you a new thing to be anxious, fearful, upset, mad, or afraid about. Donald Trump has been a boon to the news industry, the dying news industry, and the dying credibility of the news and media industry, and what he called fake news. Simply, the reason that he's been a boon to them, despite the fact that they're always trashing him, is that using his name and anything he does and painting it in whatever negative way they can has been great for drawing attention. It's great for persuading and influencing people, because people will keep watching to find out what's the next terrible thing I'm supposed to be afraid of that President Trump is going to do, or that he's already done, or that he's thinking about doing, or that he represents. All right, this has been working since his first term. It's working again in his second term. Now, the problem is his second term will be over soon. Well, it'll be over after 4 years, and then the news industry got to figure out how they're going to survive after that. They're going to have trouble. They're going to have trouble because it's not going to be a politician that is that polarizing, I don't think, for the rest of our lifetimes, what Donald Trump has done for the news industry. I don't think anybody else is coming along that's going to fit into that box the way that he did. There's going to be some big shoes to fill. And the media industry is going to figure out what they do, because they won't be able to get people all energetically activated based on any other politician after Trump's not around anymore. So how do you get people's attention these days? Is somehow, some way, you got to get them mad. Somehow, some way, get them outraged. And if you can keep it up, you keep their attention. Politicians, again, use this on an expert level, the same way that the media uses it, and the same way that everyday citizens who are now part of the media, they're learning to do it as well. Outrage does not necessarily require substance, truth, or accuracy. To get people outraged, you do not have to give them substance. You don't have to tell the truth, and nor does your story need to be accurate. Sometimes you can just allude to things, and it'll get people excited. Again, how many examples do we have of this just in the last 10 years? Oh, don't vote for Donald Trump. He's going to roll back all the civil rights gains for black and brown and minority people. I don't even like when they mix in black and brown people, because we're not all one group. And how black people allowed every other group of quote unquote brown people to mix in with the things that black people fought for and suffered for. And now other quote unquote brown people now get to participate in it as if we are all one group is some bullshit. But that's a different conversation for a different day. Donald Trump is going to do these terrible things to black and brown people and to minorities and to gays and to immigrants. And therefore, you got to be afraid of Donald Trump. Did he actually do those terrible things? No, not really. Did he do any of those terrible things? I can't even think of all the terrible things they said he was going to do. Did he actually do them? They said it's going to be Nazi Germany all over again if he won. Well, he won. Did that happen? No. But people keep telling you that it's about to happen. They've been telling you this since 2016. Well, it's about to happen. Oh, this is the first step. Oh, this is the first step. The next step is he's going to do that. And when is this going to happen? At some point, something's got to happen. It's been 10 years now. And we haven't even gotten around to it yet. So I don't know what the holdup is. I don't know what Trump's waiting on. If he's going to turn into Nazi Germany, he might want to hurry up. But anyway, every single thing that he's done, they find a way to create outrage porn around it to get the people who already don't like him further not like him. They're already persuaded, but you just keep lighting the fire all over again. It's just like you keep relighting the match just to keep it going, keep throwing more logs on the fire to keep the fire going. And this works on people because this is what they want to hear. This is the challenging thing, the great thing, but the challenging thing about the world that we're in today, that once you get people convinced of a certain point of view, they very rarely change their points of view. All they want is more material to support that point of view. And as long as you keep giving it to them, there's no way they'll change their mind. It doesn't matter what anyone from a different point of view brings to them. They will have the material to beat you back. And if all else fails, they'll just attack you on ad hominem. Well, we'll just tell you you're a bad person for even trying to change their mind on the thing, and that you're wrong for even supporting an idea that they happen to disagree with. This is the world we've created. We demanded this world. This is the world we got. This is on us. And politicians are just using it. They didn't create this. They're using it. They're responding to people. They're responding to human nature. Point number 9. Today's topic, once again, is why we're in an ongoing information war. Number 9. Most people do not have the time nor the skill set to vet everything that they hear. Most people do not have the time nor the skill set to vet everything that they hear. What does that mean? That means taking in material and asking yourself, does this actually make sense? Does this add up with what I already know? Could this stand up to any type of scrutiny, and can I provide that scrutiny? Most people don't have the skill set to ask those questions, let alone do they have the skill set to answer them. That's what vetting means. Vetting is something that happens if you're going to get in politics. You get vetted. Vetted means there are some people, powers that be in the government, who have access to a lot of data and a lot of information, who can basically find out everything about you that has ever existed. And they decide, once they know everything about you that's ever existed, are you worthy of putting an investment behind pushing you forward as a possible political candidate? And if you don't do well through the vetting process, or it doesn't look good on you, or doesn't reflect well on you, then you're out. And if the vetting process does reflect well on you, then you have the opportunity to move forward to the next step of the process. That's how vetting works. And vetting applies to information the same way it applies to people. The issue is most human beings are too mentally lazy to vet all the information we come across. And also we have too many things coming at us to vet every single thing we come across, which is why we used to have this industry called journalism of people who did all the vetting for us, and we trusted them, and they would give us accurate information. And they would tell us the what and why and how behind stories, not just the facts of the story. They would explain the story. That's what a journalist did. But nowadays, those same journalists cannot draw a full-time salary from doing that, simply because the people no longer demand that. The people who used to read journalism are now watching TikTok dance videos. So now the journalists had to become PR flacks, to where they're basically doing public relations for one side or another side of a social or political subject, because that's what their bosses told them they had to do. If you want to keep getting your paycheck, this is what you have to do. You want to do journalism, you're fired. You go do journalism on your own independently. Good luck. Or you can stay here and keep getting your salary, but you got to do this now, which is not journalism. You can still call yourself a journalist, but that's not what we're doing anymore. And this is why journalism is dead, because you got a lot of people still bastardizing the term journalist, but they are not doing journalism. And a lot of people don't know what journalism even looks like, so you're fooled into thinking someone's a journalist just as they called themselves once. Most of them are not journalists. They are paid for by certain social and political factions, and they put out the messages that they're told to put out by the people who are writing their checks. You're receiving a check, you're following rules. And most of the people who are journalists used to follow a rule of get to the truth, because that's what people wanted. People would pay for the truth. Nowadays, people won't pay for truth anymore. They pay for entertainment, persuasion, and influence. Journalism doesn't do those things. Journalism is not entertaining. It is often not very much persuasive, and it could be influential, but not in a way that tickles people's emotions the way that, let's say again, some outrage porn about the current president or something that happened in the government does. It can't compete on the same level. And this is the issue. I did a 2-part series on critical thinking back in episodes 1826 and 1827. And that now seems like a long time ago. But that material is 100% relevant to this day, because almost all the material I record here is evergreen material. And I'll be talking about critical thinking again in the future. But I bring up critical thinking here because while you're in an active information war, the most valuable attribute you can have is strong critical thinking skill. Meaning look at a situation, look at information, look at a scenario, discern what questions need to be asked, what questions need to be asked that have not been asked, see what is not being shown, and hear what is not being said in the situation. Discernment involves all of the above. Critical thinking involves all of the above. It requires another layer and another dimension of thinking that goes beyond simply absorbing what is told to you. That's what most people do. They absorb what's told to them, they accept it if it feels good, and then they just go around for the rest of their lives believing it because they were told it, without even vetting if it was actually true or not. There was a time 15 years ago you could do this and you'll be fine because most of the material you were getting was based in fact and based in the intention of the deliverer giving you the actual truth. They had the intention of doing so. Nowadays, the intention is not about giving you the truth. The intention is about getting you on one side or another side and keeping you on that side at all costs. That's what's changed. As long as back in the day, you could read, you could write, and you could understand language, you could be an informed individual. These days, you need a whole other set of skills that most people don't have, and most people are unaware that they even need them, let alone are they interested in acquiring them. Again, another reason why we're in an information war. Point number 10. Today's topic, once again, is why we're in a never-ending information war. Number 10, narratives and persuasion beat data and information. Narratives and persuasion beat data and information. What is a narrative? It's a story. So I'm not even a fan of the concept of narrative, which is trying to control the story rather than controlling the outcome and the performance. But a lot of people are focused on this, so that's why I'm bringing it up. If you can frame the story the right way and you can persuade people to agree with your story, that will overrule any data or information that is presented to the same people who accepted your story and your persuasion. What matters most these days is your ability to influence and persuade other people's thinkings. Again, whether you're using factual information or not, does not matter. As long as you can persuade people, you're doing well, at least in the media space. What makes this interesting, though, for lack of a better term, is that someone who's good at influence and persuasion can move many people to think and behave in certain ways, even with malicious intent, and no amount of facts, logic, or information is going to persuade them out of the position that they have already been persuaded into. Now, this is what you hear. Speaking of President Trump, this is what you hear a lot of people saying about his supporters. Let me tell you what I just said again, is that a person who has good influence and persuasion skills, this is what people say about Trump. He is very influential and very persuasive. He can get a bunch of people to think and behave in negative ways. For example, think January 6th, even with malicious intent. And no amount of facts, logic, or information will stop those people from acting in those negative ways. This is the kind of frame that people have been using against Donald Trump since he came into politics. I don't agree with this frame, but I completely understand it. And he's a great example of it because it's been used against his name, image, and likeness for the last 10 years. Very effectively, I might add. No amount of facts, logic, or information can persuade people out of the position that they have already been persuaded into. So this is also known as that saying right there, that statement right there. Also what some people colloquially call brainwashing. You are brainwashed to be Make America Great Again, MAGA, and you're following Trump. Therefore, no amount of logic or facts will stop you from being this dumb person who is doing this terrible thing of following Donald Trump. This is what people who don't like him say about him and the people who support him. Is this not true? Y'all all heard this, regardless of where you stand politically. This is one of the frames that people use when they want to control the flow of information. And they will use it as an explanation of why they need to ban, block, or censor certain people or pieces of information from coming out in the first place. Again, you can look to politics for a great example of this. I told you politics is a great example of this. You want to see where this is? Look in the 2020 election when presidential candidate at the time, Joe Biden, had a son named Hunter who had a laptop that got into the wrong hands, let's just say, and there were some incriminating things on that laptop. And the government tried very hard, along with the mainstream media, to bury that story and tell you that it was fake news. There was no laptop. There's no real laptop. That's not his laptop. There's nothing on there, nothing to see here. After the 2020 election was decided and Joe Biden was named the winner, all of a sudden the laptop was real. All right, that's an example of this. People trying to ban, block, or censor any information from coming out that they don't want to come out because they have deemed themselves the arbiters of what is true and what is not true. This is the reason why I'm strongly against this, because you don't want anyone having that ultimate authority. I don't care where they stand politically or who they are. Nobody should have that ultimate authority. I don't want anybody telling me what I'm allowed to consume based on your opinion. I don't give a damn about your opinion. Let me decide and draw my own conclusion. And this is how we get misinformation, malinformation, fake news, blocked websites, etc., etc. They don't want anybody coming into contact with certain information, so they'll block it. Again, I'm strongly against this, even though some people may not necessarily be wrong in saying it. Hey, we shouldn't let this information get out because this could be harmful if people actually believe it. I understand it and agree that sometimes that is true. At the same time, the trade-off of blocking information is that now we are limited to only listening to what you say, not a fan. And the trade-off of accepting any information, regardless of what it is, even if it's completely fake news, is that some people are going to be misled by bad information. All right, that's the trade-off. I'll take that one. I'll take option B. I will take option B. The problem with what they're saying is that they then get control over what information flows out. When they're blocking things from coming out and they control what's acceptable and what's not, they control the flow of information. And eventually some information will flow out that they don't want people to know about, and then they'll block it. Again, this is where they start having control over what you know to be true. You should have access to all the information through which you can decide for yourself. We don't want to do all this extra. So I would rather accept the trade-off of some bad and grossly inaccurate information getting out into the world rather than giving any people the power of deciding what everybody else can hear or not hear. I'll take the chances with the bad information and maybe somebody even acting on the bad information, but I don't want anybody telling me what's okay to consume and what's not under any circumstances. Recapping today's class, which is part 3 of our ongoing series, why the information war will never end. Number 7, we have no universal referee, at least not in the secular world. And if anybody even tried, we wouldn't agree on it. Number 8, outrage is a business model. You can get people anxious, nervous, fearful, or somewhat emotionally triggered. You can pretty much control them, get them to do whatever you want them to do. Number 9, most people do not have the time nor the skill set to vet everything that they hear. So most people just generally accept what they've heard as long as they have some reason to believe in the source of the material, even if that material is complete nonsense. And number 10, narratives and persuasion beat data and information. What matters most these days is your ability to influence and persuade other people's thinking. Whether you are using factual information or not is secondary. The number one thing is get the attention, get people to pay attention to you, get people to follow your narrative. And this is the reason why social media trades on attention. If you can get the most attention, you'll be the man or the girl on social media, even if what you did to get that attention does not contain much substance. If your main priority is getting the attention, then this is a trade-off that some people are willing to accept. I'm not saying you have to, I'm just telling you what it is. All that said, you want to learn more of the game when it comes to interpersonal relationships, when it comes to building your brand, building your business, getting your stuff in order where you want it to be on the personal side and the professional side of your life. Let me coach you on it. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, and that's where we can get started. Work on your game. Dre all